Cliff Burton, the bass legend whose innovative style, unmistakable tone, and fearless creativity left a permanent mark on heavy metal. In the early days of Metallica, Cliff was their soul, and he played a major role in forging their signature sound. In just 4 short years, he recorded some memorable bass tracks on 3 of the most iconic heavy metal albums of all times. Today on Metal Icons, we honor the life and the legacy of Metallica's legendary bassist, Cliff Burton. It all started on February 10, 1962, in Castro Valley, California. On that day, Raymond and Jeanette Burton welcomed their son Clifford Lee into the world. The youngest of 3 children, Cliff had an older brother named Scott and a sister named Connie. His parents were gentle, open-minded, and artistic. Their home was filled with literature and music of every kind, from classical pieces up to the modern sounds of 1970s rock. Cliff's love for music began at the age of 6, when his father introduced him to classical music and encouraged him to take piano lessons. He grew up in the heart of California's counterculture, surrounded by art, creativity, and freedom. When he was 13 years old, tragedy struck. His older brother, Scott, died unexpectedly from a brain aneurysm. To honor his brother's memory, Cliff made a promise. He vowed to become the best musician he could possibly be. Cliff devoted himself to his craft, practicing up to 6 hours a day. While most bass players stayed in the shadows of the guitars, Cliff saw the instrument differently. His fingers moved like lightning across the frets, exploring scales, harmonics, and melodies that others simply ignored. But practice wasn't enough. Cliff wanted to understand why music moved people. He began studying music theory, reading about modes and counterpoint, and diving into the logic behind emotions. Cliff's influences were as diverse as his playing style. He drew inspiration from classical composers like Bach and Beethoven for their structure and melody, while heavy metal pioneers such as Black Sabbath, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, and Thin Lizzy fueled his passion for power and aggression. He admired Geezer Butler for his dark, melodic bass lines, and Phil Lynott for his soulful presence and storytelling. Cliff was also deeply inspired by progressive and psychedelic bands like Rush, Yes, King Crimson, and Pink Floyd. From jazz fusion pioneer Stanley Clarke, he learned that technique means nothing without feel. And when he needed soul, he found it in Lynyrd Skynyrd, Blue Oyster Cult, and in the raw pulse of the Misfits. Each influence added a new color to his palette. By his late teens, Cliff had forged an unmistakable sound, a powerful blend of melody and aggression, merging classical elegance with heavy metal intensity. During his high school years, Cliff played in several local bands. One of them was Easy Street. It featured the future Faith No More members Jim Martin and Mike Bordin. They played in garages, high school dances, and performed in small clubs around Castro Valley. Eventually, Cliff and Jim Martin formed Agents of Misfortune, a band that pushed the limits of what a bass guitar could do. In 1981, their performance at a local Battle of the Bands stunned the crowd. Hidden within those performances were early versions of what would become Metallica classics, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and Cliff's solo, Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. That same year, he joined a local group called Trauma, a San Francisco-based metal band known for its melodic but intense sound. During a Trauma show at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles, Cliff unleashed a bass solo that left the crowd in disbelief. Among those mesmerized by his skills were 2 young musicians from a rising band called Metallica, James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. Metallica was on the hunt for a new bass player. When they saw Cliff Burton, they knew immediately that he was the one. They asked him to join, but Cliff didn't say yes immediately. Loyal to his roots in the Bay Area, he refused to move to Los Angeles, a city he despised for its glam metal scene. He told Metallica, "If you want me in the band, you have to move to San Francisco." And they did. Cliff officially joined Metallica in December 1982, and by early 1983, the band had relocated to El Cerrito in the San Francisco Bay Area. Not long after, they were signed by Megaforce Records, an independent record label based in New Jersey. The label's founders, Johnny Z and Marcia Zazula, discovered Metallica after hearing their 1982 demo, No Life Till Leather. But in April 1983, just weeks before entering the studio, Metallica parted ways with guitarist Dave Mustaine. Shortly after, Kirk Hammett of Exodus was invited to join the band. And in May, right on schedule, Metallica headed to the East Coast to record their debut album. Kill 'Em All was released on July 25, 1983. It was raw, fast, and unapologetically aggressive. Recorded at Music America Studios in Rochester, New York, with producer Paul Curcio, the record captured the sound of four young men redefining heavy metal. But listen closely, and you can hear Cliff Burton's fingerprints all over it. The song Anesthesia Pulling Teeth was his shining moment, a bass solo unlike anything in heavy metal history. With his Rickenbacker, distortion pedals, and wah-wah effects, he created something both brutal and beautiful. That track alone turned Cliff into a cult hero among fans and musicians. On that summer of 1983, Metallica toured across North America with the British metal band Raven. Cliff's stage presence was mesmerizing, precise, ferocious, and he was completely consumed by the music. With his red hair whipping through the air, his headbanging became the stuff of legend. Kill 'Em All wasn't a commercial success at first, but it became one of the most influential and best-selling debut albums in heavy metal history. In 1986, it was reissued by Elektra Records and entered at number 155 on the Billboard 200. Behind the power of his music, Cliff was a quiet and thoughtful soul. He loved books, nature, and long conversations about life and music. In his early 20s, Cliff found love with Corinne Lynn, a young woman who shared his appreciation for music and authenticity. Corinne later described him as deeply kind, introspective, and unpretentious, a man who never let fame change who he was. Cliff loved people, and friends said he treated everyone equally, whether they were a fan backstage or a stranger in a crowd.
Both doing real well.
Just 1 year after their explosive debut, Metallica struck again with Ride the Lightning on July 27, 1984. Recorded over 3 weeks at Sweet Silence Studios in Copenhagen, Denmark, the sessions revealed a band evolving beyond pure speed and aggression. Guided by producer Flemming Rasmussen, Metallica sharpened their sound, making it heavier, tighter, and more ambitious than ever before. While still grounded in thrash metal, Ride the Lightning marked a major leap in Metallica's songwriting and musical depth. Much of that growth came from Cliff Burton, whose classical background and melodic instincts added new layers of harmony and emotion to the band's sound. He introduced music theory to the group and took a stronger role in shaping songs, guiding Metallica beyond the relentless pace of Kill 'Em All towards something far more dynamic. The record's mix of acoustic textures, complex arrangements, and dramatic shifts in tone showcased a new side of the band. Songs like Fade to Black, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and The Call of Cthulhu demonstrated a maturity and depth that set Metallica apart from the rest of the metal world. Despite very little radio play, Ride the Lightning reached number 100 on the Billboard 200, went gold by late 1987, and by 2012 had achieved 6 times platinum status in the United States. The album was praised by both fans and critics, proving that Metallica had become one of the leading forces in modern heavy metal. The band toured non-stop through 1984 and 1985, performing their first ever shows in countries such as Sweden, Denmark, France, and Germany. But in 1985, Metallica's momentum exploded as they were stepping into the big leagues. That summer, on August 17th, they performed at the Monsters of Rock Festival in Donington Park, England. It was their first major festival appearance in front of more than 70,000 people, alongside Bon Jovi, Rat, and ZZ Top. And 2 weeks later, on August 31st, they played at Day on the Green in Oakland, California, before a crowd of 90,000 fans, sharing the bill with Scorpions and Rat. These landmark shows proved that Metallica was no longer just an underground thrash metal act. They were becoming one of the most powerful live bands in the world, ready to dominate the metal scene. In September 1985, Metallica entered Sweet Silence Studios in Copenhagen, Denmark, to begin recording Master of Puppets with producer Flemming Rasmussen, who had also worked with them on Ride the Lightning. The sessions ran from September to December 1985, capturing the band at the height of their creative power. Cliff Burton's influence was felt all over the album. His strong knowledge of music helped shape the album's sound and added real emotion to its power. You can hear his touch in the changing rhythms of Battery, the haunting middle of the title track Master of Puppets, and especially in Orion, the instrumental he co-wrote that mixed classical beauty with metal power. His melodic style also added depth to Disposable Heroes and Welcome Home Sanitarium, bringing harmony to the heaviness. Master of Puppets was released on March 3, 1986, through Elektra Records, and became the first Metallica album distributed by a major label. It reached number 29 on the Billboard 200, an extraordinary feat for a band with no radio airplay or singles. It was certified gold later that year, and platinum in 1988. Critics hailed it as a landmark in heavy metal, powerful, intelligent, and uncompromising. Its precision, scope, and depth elevated Metallica from underground thrash icons to one of the most respected and influential bands in the world. With Master of Puppets complete, Metallica hit the road harder than ever. In March 1986, they joined Ozzy Osbourne's Ultimate Sin Tour as the opening act across North America, a massive leap from the clubs and theaters they had conquered just a year before. Night after night, they unleashed Battery, Master of Puppets, and Disposable Heroes on arenas full of rock fans, many of whom had never witnessed such intensity. By the end of the tour, Metallica was stealing the show from the headliner. Their stage presence was raw and unstoppable. After conquering the US, the band launched the European leg of the Damage Incorporated tour. Metallica was headlining overseas for the first time. As they stormed through England, Holland, and Sweden, their audiences grew larger with every show. At the Metal Hammer Festival in Germany, their set left the crowd stunned, and days later, at the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, their intensity reached new heights. The chemistry on stage was electric, the music tighter than ever, and Cliff stood at the center of it all, calm, confident, lost in the sound he helped create. By late September of 1986, the tour had become one of the most talked about runs in metal. Each night felt bigger than the last, as Metallica's momentum surged towards something monumental, and unknowingly, toward one final night that would tragically mark the end of an era. On Friday, September 26, 1986, Metallica played at Solnahallen in Stockholm, Sweden. It would be Cliff Burton's final performance. After the show, the band packed up their gear, laughing and joking as they climbed aboard the tour bus bound for Copenhagen, where they were scheduled to play the next night. Everyone was exhausted. Cliff and Kirk Hammett drew cards to decide who got which bunk. Cliff won. He pointed at the top bed by the window and picked that one. It was known as the good bunk. That night, on its way to Copenhagen, Denmark, the bus drove quietly through the cold Swedish countryside. It was around 7 a.m., when tragedy struck near the town of Dorarp, just outside Ljungby in Sweden. The bus swerved violently, tires screeching across the asphalt, and then everything turned upside down. The massive vehicle skidded off the road, rolled, and crashed to its side. In those few seconds, chaos erupted. Cliff, asleep in the top bunk by the window, was thrown through the glass as the bus flipped. The entire weight of the vehicle came crashing down on top of him. The others crawled out through the shattered windows, dazed and bloodied. The driver claimed that he had hit a patch of black ice. James Hetfield stumbled barefoot onto the road, shouting Cliff's name into the cold morning air, trying to find the black ice the driver had spoken of. Kirk Hammett stood frozen, unable to process what he saw. Lars and the crew called for help, but deep down, they already knew. Rescue teams arrived quickly, and a crane was brought to lift the wreckage and free Cliff. For a brief moment, it worked, and the bus rose. But then the chain snapped, and the vehicle slammed back down on the same spot. Cliff Burton was gone. He was just 24 years old. The band returned to America in mourning, and for a while, they thought about ending Metallica. But Cliff's parents, Ray and Jan Burton, encouraged them to go on. They told the band that Cliff would have wanted the music to live. At the funeral, his favorite song, Orion, was played. Cliff's body was cremated, his ashes scattered at a private location in his home state. Not long after, Metallica held a memorial concert in his honor, joined by Anthrax and Armored Saint, to pay tribute to their fallen brother. In 2009, Cliff Burton was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside his bandmates. His father, Ray Burton, accepted the honor on his behalf, smiling proudly and saying, "He loved playing his music, and he loved his fans." Even decades after his death, his spirit remains alive. Musicians still study his lines, fans still wear his denim jacket patches, and his bass lines still shake the ground. Near the site of Metallica's tragic 1986 bus crash in Dorarp, Sweden, stands the Cliff Burton Memorial Stone. Installed in 2006, the granite monument rests quietly among trees and open fields, bearing the haunting words, "Cannot the kingdom of salvation take me home?" Fans from around the world continue to visit this sacred place, leaving guitar picks, flowers, and heartfelt messages in his honor. A few miles from the crash site, the Cliff Burton Museum opened in 2017. It is located inside the old Dorarp train station and was built by the Ljungby Rock organization with the help of devoted fans. It stands as a heartfelt tribute to Cliff's legacy. Visitors can explore rare photos, personal items, and stories that honor the bassist whose sound reshaped the world of heavy metal.